Potting soil is absolutely essential to growing good, healthy plants. Getting it right is important, and making your own potting soil is easy and can be a huge cost saver. Here's how I make my potting soil, and it's pretty darn simple. You really only need 2 main ingredients and then a few additives to really add a little bit of a boost to it. Now I'm talking a legitimate actual potting soil, not a soilless potting mix. This is not something necessarily for your seedlings. This is more tailored for, I'm taking a seedling and I'm transplanting it into a pot where it's going to grow for a while. Maybe just for another few weeks or a month or two, or maybe I'm planting it in a pot where it's going to grow out the rest of its life in this pot and produce everything for me. First thing I'm going to do is get myself some good compost. I like to make my own compost. You can buy compost. I'm going to use compost that I bought here in this video because it was cheap and easy. That's fine. Now I'm going to take this compost, 1 bag of composted manure. Good stuff. That's about 5 gallons worth, usually somewhere between 4 to 5 gallons you'll get out of 1 bag. I'm going to take that, I'm going to mix it with about half of a 5-gallon bucket full of peat moss, saffron moss. You can also use the cocoa coir, which is just the fuzzy stuff from the coconut hulls. That works great. I use peat moss because it's a local thing and it's cheap around here. So I'm going to do 1 part peat moss to 2 parts compost for my general potting soil mix. That's going to be a nice, rich, heavy compost material. That compost is going to be the main source of feed for these plants as they're growing up. And now I'm putting in tomatoes in these. These are quart pots here, and I'm putting tomatoes in them. They're going to be in here for about a month before I bring these plants down to market for Mother's Day, and I'm going to sell them. Hopefully they sell pretty good for me. I'm pretty excited about that too. Anyways, all I got to do is dump this composted manure into my wheelbarrow. Wheelbarrows are great for mixing this stuff. And I'm going to put my half as much peat moss on top, and I'm going to mix the two together. It's just with a shovel. I like to use a shovel and a rake, or just get my hands in there and mix the two together. And that's good enough potting soil on its own. Pretty darn good, honestly. I'm going to go ahead and add a couple kicks to this, give it a good little kick, some boost here. And I'm going to put a couple ingredients. One of them is I'm going to use a little bit of chicken manure, just some nice dry aged chicken manure. This has got manure in it. It's got the chicken poo. It's got the wood shavings that I use, pine shavings from a planer machine. It's a good combination for these medium to larger size pots that I'm using. It's adding a lot of good fertility to feed those plants. I'm also going to put just a bit, maybe half a shovel or so worth of the chicken manure, and I'm going to use half a shovel or so worth of rabbit manure, just a fairly dried, little bit aged rabbit pellets. Mix it right on in there. It's great for the plants. It can't hurt a thing. It's going to feed amazing biology in the soil, and it'll feed your soil. For these, I'm planting these into the ground, or the people who are buying them from me are planting them in the ground after they buy it, and that's going to, the rabbit manure pellets are going to really feed the biology in the soil after you plant them, which is super important. And the last thing that I'm going to add in here is a little mixture of 2 things. I've got my special sauce, as I've been calling it, and that's a mixture of biochar and worm castings. It's just a 50-50 mix of the two. I make the biochar myself. I also sell it on my website, northernhomesteading.com. Check it out. And my friend across town over here has a little worm operation, and I bought a few buckets of their worm castings. So I mix those together. It's amazing to add into the potting soil. It puts a lot of good nutrients, a lot of good minerals. It puts a lot of good soil bacteria. It really inoculates things well, and the biochar just helps to hold things together and give more longevity out of the fertility nutrients in that worm casting. So I'm just going to mix those all together, mix them up good, put them right on in my pots, and now these suckers are ready for planting. There is enough fertility in these little pots right now to feed my tomato plants for about the next 2 months. Honestly, they're going to outgrow these pots way before they run out of fertility. So even after you buy these from me and you plant them in the ground, that's still going to continue to feed the plant throughout the whole year. They might need a little extra. These plants can grow big, but it's going to make a huge difference into the health of your plants. Now quick, I want to talk about the aspects of a good potting soil. Good potting soil has to be pretty soft. You want it soft because generally we're putting in smaller plants in here and they're going to grow. I want those roots to spread. Roots spread better through soft soil. Soft soil tends to work better. Doesn't have to be super insanely soft, but fairly soft is good. You want it to be absorbent. It has to hold a lot of water because that's also how it holds and how the soil carries nutrients and fertility throughout it. That's how the fertility gets uptaken by the roots. That's how the soil bacteria and soil funguses work together. You have to have an absorbent soil so it holds that water. You want a soil that resists drying so that it sucks up the water and it holds onto it very well. You want a soil that's well draining. It has to be well draining so that it doesn't turn into a swamp or a bog. It has to be a little aerated. You want a soil that's fertile. You want a fairly balanced pH, somewhere between a 6 and a 7 for 99.5% of all your plants. Any common vegetable plant, between a 6 and a 7 is great. Generally, for a potting soil, not seed starting soil, but a potting soil, I want it to be on the rich side. So I want more compost than fluff. For a seed starting soil, I want to have more fluff than compost most of the time, because I just want those seeds to really take off and spread their roots like crazy. Just get a little bit of that compost fertility before I take them out, now with good established roots that didn't get hindered at all in hard soil, and now I'll plant them in a heavier soil, in my potting soil. That's how to make a good potting soil. My favorite potting soil mix is there. Nice and easy and cheap, by the way. And aspects of good potting soil. Also, I've had a lot of people getting a hold of me asking questions or asking about consultations. I do consultations. If you just have simple questions, jump onto my Facebook group, Homestead Know-How on Facebook. If you're doing a consultation, those can get a little expensive pretty quick. It takes a lot of dedicated time. But if you just have some questions, get in the Facebook group and ask some questions. I answer every question that comes up. And it's a great way to learn and benefit and just show off a little bit of what you're doing too. I'd love to see you there. Check me out there. Check out the YouTube channel subscription. YouTube channel subscription as well. Some great video content, educational stuff there. I gotta run. I got a ton of chores. I gotta go restoke the wood stove and cut more wood, and it's already about 10:30 at night. So I'll run and I'll catch you later. Bye now.